Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Norm Di Pasquale, NDP candidate for Spadina, Fort York, and I'm joined as well today by Claire Haxel, NDP candidate for Toronto Danforth. I would like to start by acknowledging that we're standing on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, as well as the ancestral home to members of the Métis Nation. It's my pleasure to welcome the Customs and Immigration Union President, Mark Weber, and CIU members to the riding, and to Toronto's beautiful revitalized waterfront, which now includes the revitalized Bathurst Quay where we find ourselves today. Thanks to the Waterfront Neighborhood Centre, an important community hub, for hosting us. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the leader of Canada's NDP, Jagmeet Singh.
Thanks so much, Norm. Thank you. Thank you, Norm, and thank you to Mark, who's going to be speaking a bit later, and of course to Claire, our candidate from Danforth, for being here, and for the workers that are here. I believe, all of us here believe, that everyone in our country should feel safe. You should be safe in your communities, safe going to work, safe when you come back home, safe when you go to the park. Safe. You should be safe. You have the right to be safe. Sadly, that is not what it feels like right now. We're seeing a really serious increase in gun violence, particularly. We heard this week of really troubling allegations by the RCMP that a foreign government is actually hiring organized criminals, gangs, to engage in gun violence in our communities. And when we think about what gun violence means to people, I think about the people that are impacted. Of course, we know the lives that are cut short, all the potential that person that was killed could have contributed back to their communities, the things that they could have achieved in their lives. The families left behind mourning them, mourning their loss. The loved ones that are left with the trauma of seeing someone that they care deeply about killed in that way. So there is deep impacts of gun violence. And we know that the majority of guns that are involved in these serious crimes, the vast majority of those guns, when they're seized by the police, turns out 85% of them are smuggled across the border. Now, our customs, our CIU workers, these are workers that can protect our country. These are workers, these are border officers that can keep us safe. But they have been so under-resourced, understaffed, that they're unable to do the work that they want to do, that they know how to do. They're just simply overworked and understaffed, do not have the capacity to do what's necessary. When we look at the sheer volume of risks that our country faces, we don't have enough workers to meet that need. And we know a large reason why we're in this position is because when the Conservatives were in power, they massively cut Canadian Border Security Agency with massive cuts. In one day alone, the cuts that the Conservatives brought in resulted in 1,100 officers being fired. 1,100 officers were cut directly as a result of Conservatives. Now, Pierre Poilievre talks a lot about crime, but his government, when he was in power, cut the very officers that we need to keep our country safe. And he would do more of the same. He's talked about cutting the services that we need. That's not going to get us to the point where we need to be. We know that Justin Trudeau had the opportunity to reverse those cuts and hasn't done so. So today, our announcement as leader of this party, the New Democratic Party, is committed to immediately, as Prime Minister, I would restore immediately those 1,100 workers and work to increasing our capacity so that we can have the resources necessary and the equipment necessary, and most importantly, the staff necessary to protect us, whether it's over rail or other ports of entry, make sure that we are protecting our country from illegal guns being brought into the country. We can keep our country safe. We can protect our communities, but it requires having the people that are the ones that can do this work, having them staffed up sufficiently so they can provide the services that they know how to do and they can do, but just have to be properly resourced and properly staffed to do so. We want to keep our community safe. People deserve to be safe, and we're going to fight to make sure that's a reality. I also just want to acknowledge that while we're focused on gun smuggling and gun crime, we know that the roots of violence are very complex, and that involves addressing other concerns as well, which include addressing poverty, addressing lack of opportunities, and we'll continue to work on those solutions as well. I'll do that again in French, and then I'm going to ask the president of the CIU to share some thoughts, and then I'll take your questions. Donc, d'abord, je veux dire que comme chef du Parti néo-démocrate et tous les gens qui sont ici, je veux premièrement remercier les travailleurs qui sont ici. Je veux remercier Norm Di Pasquale et Claire Haxel, nos candidats ici à Toronto. Ici aussi le président de la Union, le syndicat Mark Webber. On croit profondément que les gens doivent avoir le droit d'être en sécurité dans nos communautés, quand ils vont au travail et quand ils retournent chez eux. Ça, c'est un droit fondamental d'être en sécurité. Mais malheureusement, ce n'est pas le cas. On a vu une hausse de violence à travers le pays, une hausse de violence particulièrement une hausse de violence causée par les armes à feu. Ça, c'est vraiment inquiétant. Le trauma de cette violence, les impacts, les vies coupées et la famille qui sont en deuil parce qu'ils ont perdu leurs proches. Donc, on veut régler ces choses. Ce que on a trouvé, c'est le fait que pour les armes à feu qui sont saisies par les policiers, la grande majorité de ces armes à feu sont des armes à feu illégales qui étaient trafiquées illégalement sur nos frontières, sur les frontaliers. Donc, on sait que ces travailleurs dans le frontalier peuvent garder notre pays, peuvent protéger le pays, mais il y a un manque de main-d'œuvre pour le faire. Il y a un manque de ressources. Donc, on doit régler ça. Les conservateurs, quand ils étaient au pouvoir, ont coupé massivement dans ces services. Ils ont coupé les travailleurs. Ils ont coupé 1100 travailleurs dans une journée. Et donc, à cause de ces coupures, on est dans une position plus faible maintenant. On n'a pas les ressources nécessaires pour protéger les pays. Donc, Pierre Poilievre veut parler souvent du crime, mais la réalité, c'est son gouvernement a coupé les nombres de travailleurs et ça a créé les situations où on n'a pas des travailleurs suffisants pour protéger notre pays. Donc, ce qu'on propose et ce que je propose comme chef du parti et ce que je vais faire comme Premier ministre, c'est de régler ces coupures. Justin Trudeau a eu la chance de régler ces coupures, mais il a continué les mêmes coupures. Il n'a pas les réglé. Donc, comme Premier ministre, ce que je vais faire, immédiatement embaucher 1100 travailleurs des frontières, immédiatement, et puis continuer d'augmenter les nombres de travailleurs pour avoir une capacité suffisante pour protéger notre pays. Si on parle de rails ou des autres ports, on doit avoir les ressources nécessaires pour protéger notre pays. C'est exactement ce qu'on va faire. On peut régler les choses, on peut garder notre pays, on peut protéger notre pays, mais on doit prendre les mesures nécessaires. Finalement, je veux aussi ajouter qu'on sait que les racines de la violence sont complexes et il faut aussi adresser les autres enjeux comme la pauvreté et les manques des opportunités qui aussi contribuent à la violence. Merci. With that, I want to pass over to the president that represents these workers that protect us on the border, the president who represents the border security officers, president of the CIU, Mark Webber.
Thank you. For years, the Customs and Immigration Union has been asking the government of Canada to hire more officers. We need more officers on the front line. We need more officers on the front line so we could interdict illegal firearms before they come into the country, along with other goods that we aren't going to get into the country. If I'm being completely honest, the situation on the ground at the CBSA is really bleak. Just to meet operational requirements, the CBSA would have to hire at least 2,000 officers. Right now, our one training center can graduate a maximum of 600 officers per year. That's all we're set up to graduate. 600 doesn't even cover attrition. So we're really unable, the way things are currently formulated, to get those numbers up. The reality is that our staffing levels are so low at many ports of entry that our ability to do any kind of interdiction, including for illegal firearms, is close to nil. Rather than investing in people, what we see the CBSA doing is investing in ill-conceived technologies such as ArriveCam, which are entirely tailored to facilitation and not interdiction. They reduce national security. They make our communities less safe. At the same time, we have the CBSA's habit of hiring more managers than the frontline staff that they need, Combined, it's a pretty bad situation on the ground. Our officers, they're exhausted. They work under continuous conditions of short staffing. They are tired. Overtime in most workplaces is virtually unlimited, and that is just to keep the border running. It's a desperate situation. What our members need is support from the government. That support has to mean more officers. That support has to mean better training centers so we can train and graduate enough officers to bring those staffing levels up. That support means adequate tools, reliable tools that we can use. That support means being able to interdict and patrol between ports of entry, which is a big source of where these illegal firearms are coming from, which we currently cannot do. That support means benefits that are more in line with the greater law enforcement community. That'll help with retention. That'll help with recruitment. But what we really need is that support from the government. Earlier, June this year, the federal government announced pension reform, which is extremely positive. It's something we've been seeking for many years. It's something that the NDP has supported us on for many years. It's very positive. We applaud the government for doing that, and we think long-term, it'll have a very beneficial impact on retention. But it's a first step. There's so much more work that really needs to be done in terms of technologies that just lessen our security. We need to stop relying on that, and we have to start relying on people, on the officers on the front line who find the dangerous goods, who find the firearms, who search the cars, who search the bags. You need people to do that work. No machine is doing that, and we simply do not have the people in place. I would like to thank Mr. Singh. I would like to thank the NDP for committing to increasing our frontline numbers. They're the first government in my time, and I've been with this agency for 23 years, to do that. It's a huge step forward to commit to relying on people rather than ill-conceived technologies, which again, lessen our security, don't increase it. Those are all about facilitation and getting people at the door with no questions asked as quickly as possible, because we simply do not have the staff to deal with them. The members who work for CIU, CBSA officers, get into this line of work because they want to keep Canadians safe. They want to keep their community safe. That's why you do this kind of work, and they deserve to be given every tool that they need to be successful at that work. What we're hearing here today from the NDP, that's exactly the kind of support that we need, and it is very heartening to hear. Thank you.
Thanks much. Appreciate that. Thanks again to Mark, and thanks again to the workers that are here from the CIU. Appreciate the work that you do and appreciate your presence here today. With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
I'm going to take questions in the room, and then I'm going to go to Zoom. Starting with
Hi, I'm from CP Canadian Press. My first question for you is that in your security briefings about foreign interference, were you ever given any name of NDP current or former MPs or candidates who, as the Prime Minister phrased it yesterday, were engaged in or were at risk of foreign interference?
After reviewing the top secret information that I received after receiving my top secret clearance, there was no information that I received that required me to take any additional steps as it pertains to the New Democratic Party. There were concerns that were raised that I felt required other party leaders to take action. But after reading that report, receiving the information that I received, there was no additional steps that I needed to take as leader of the New Democratic Party.
And the follow-up questions about the tension between India and Canada. Some people in the Indian diaspora community are expressing concerns that India could stop processing their visa again. So my question is that, do you share that concern? And what is your message to the travelers who are feeling worried about what's coming?
Thank you for the question. I am concerned about the impacts on everyday folks that have links and connections to India. I want to create a distinction. As a nation, as Canadians, we want to have relationships with people around the world. And there are many people that have come to Canada from India that are incredible contributing members of our communities, that are our friends, our neighbors, that are community members. And we value them, and we value their relationships, and we recognize their need to be able to go back and visit their family and go back to India. We have relationships with businesses that we've got excellent relationships with. Our focus as a nation should be on making a distinction between the people, between businesses, and right now the government. The government of India, and specifically the Modi government, the current prime minister and the current government, have engaged in allegations which are deeply concerning. So we need accountability, we need full transparency, and we need a unified front. As all elected officials, all party leaders should stand united, a Team Canada approach on the same side to denounce clearly these very serious allegations of completely inappropriate behavior, frankly, illegal, heinous behavior by the Indian government, by the Modi government. We need to stand united in denouncing that and really targeting our approach towards the diplomats and the Indian government and demanding justice and accountability there, while maintaining a relationship with, of course, the people and the businesses that we have relationships with.
Any questions in the room?
Hi, Rob, City News. Just to follow up on the foreign interference report question. Yeah, you have security clearance as well. Do you know those names?
I am aware of information that was shared in the reports, and I've said that given the report that I read, given the information that I was able to read, I have called for a release of the names in a manner that respects national security and respects our workers, the folks that are involved in national security. The concern being that if it's not released in an appropriate manner, it could jeopardize either the methodology, how we've obtained that information, or the people that obtain that information. So protecting them should be the top priority, but people do need transparency and we need to see the names released.
So you're looking for all names released?
I want to see as much transparency as possible while recognizing national security interests. I think they can be balanced and that people ought to know who is involved. And there should be a way to do that while protecting the matters that I outlined.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Guys, just quickly, the pledge to increase the number of the staffing.
Yes.
You're talking about today. Is there a dollar figure of how much that would cost? Obviously, it involves substantially expanding the training facility. If only 600 of these officers can be trained a year. Yeah.
I would start by saying that the cost of not doing anything is we're losing lives. We're losing. People are being killed with gun violence, and as I cited, 85% of the guns seized are guns that have been illegally smuggled. So it is clear that it's having a direct impact on our lives and the lives of Canadians, families, that not just the people whose lives are cut short and they aren't able to live their full lives and their full potential, the family members that continue to live with the trauma and the pain of their loss, communities that are reeling with the feeling of not being safe. So there's an immense cost to not taking action. The cuts that the Conservatives brought in were in the range of $150 million to the CBSA. And so we need to reverse those cuts. Justin Trudeau had an opportunity over the past 9 years to do so, has not actually reversed that cut, has maintained the same cut, and it's let people down. And so we are committing to reversing that cut. We know that would include other measures like increasing the capacity to train. I think we'd also need to look at rehiring workers that have left the workforce. We also, as was mentioned by President Mark Weber, we have to look at some of the ways to encourage recruitment and retention, and that includes looking at improvements to the benefits package. One of the things that workers have called for is similar to other law enforcement is at 25 and out. That's something that we would also support. So we need to look at respect, we need to look at recruitment, we need to look at retention as the tools to get back to a position where we can keep our country safe. As was outlined, this is about safety, and people in our country deserve to feel safe, deserve to be safe. And one of the ways we can do that is by stopping the smuggling of illegal arms into our country, which is a serious problem. And we're not able to do that, as was outlined by President Weber, without having the sufficient workforce in place. We can't do the work necessary to keep people safe.
And just to clarify on the names, there were no names of NDP parliamentarians, or there were none that you were concerned about?
I've said this, and I hope I can. This is to be careful about revealing any inappropriate information. There was no information that I received, having read the document and received the top secret clearance. There's no information that I received regarding current or past candidates that required me to take additional steps when it came to the New Democratic Party. But there were outstanding issues from what I read reflecting the impacting other parties. And that's why I've said all leaders should get clearance and should take the necessary steps to protect the integrity of our democracy and to ensure that there's not this interference. If I can be very specific, I have said, and I have pointed out, the only federal leader in our country right now who is not either committed to or obtained security clearance is Pierre Poilievre. It is very disturbing to me, given the ongoing threats, the ongoing and real threats from a foreign government impacting the lives of Canadians right now, in addition to specific allegations that are now public knowledge in the report that was released that specifically named the Conservative Party of Canada and at least two leadership races, the one where the current leader was chosen and a previous one. Given that, I cannot imagine why a leader would not want to receive all information possible to take every step to protect our country. I love our country. I love our democracy, as these workers do. These workers love Canada. I love Canada. I want to do everything possible to protect it. I can't imagine why a political leader wouldn't also want to do that as well. So I can't understand why Pierre Poilievre refuses to get information that could protect the lives of Canadians, that could protect the sanctity of our democracy. This is a moment where we have to put our party second and put the country first. It is a country first approach. And the only reason I think Pierre Poilievre is reluctant to take the information or get the information necessary is because he wants to protect his party above the country. And that is absolutely wrong.
And we'll go to Zoom to take questions from journalists from afar.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So just a reminder for journalists on Zoom to please use the raise hand function to ask your question.
I'll pass it back to you, Nima.
Yeah, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We'll take a moment. I think there might be folks on Zoom, and Nina, who's working in Ottawa, will take a look at anyone who's raised their hand for questions.
So I just want to make sure that you hear me. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you there, Nina.
Excellent. Perfect. So just a reminder for folks online to please use the raise hand function to ask your question. Un rappel à tout le monde en ligne d'utiliser la fonction lever la main pour poser votre question. We're going to start with Ashley Burke with the CBC. Please go ahead.
Ashley, you might be on mute.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Singh.
No problem.
You talked about how when you got that classified briefing that there were outstanding issues that you said impacted other parties. Did those outstanding issues impact the Conservative Party and other parties? And what can you say about the severity of these outstanding issues from your perspective?
I thought that they were quite severe. I thought the matters were quite serious. I think it's fair just point to what is available in the public document. Part of the reason for my precision of language is that I don't want to inadvertently release anything that is top secret and that could jeopardize national security. I deeply care about protecting both the people that serve as well as the techniques and tools that we use. So that's why I want to be very careful. But from what I read and what is available, I can just focus on what's available in the public discourse. It is clear that there are in this report, which I might remind folks, it was a report that was written by a committee that included members of parliament from all parties, in addition to senators. This report indicated that there was clear intelligence that impacted the Conservative Party of Canada. That is out there in the public discourse. That alone should raise serious concerns for Canadians, saying that, well, this public report, the portion of it that's public, has serious allegations impacting the Conservative Party of Canada. And Pierre Poilievre refuses to receive a security clearance to know about what's going on. And please, let's not buy his bogus excuse that this anyway limits what you can say. It limits the protection of our methodology and of the people, which I hope that he would also want to protect, but it doesn't limit me in any way from criticizing the government, from pointing out my disagreement with their conclusions, as I did. The special rapporteur said that there was no need for a public inquiry after receiving the information. I read that information and said, no, I disagree. We absolutely need a public inquiry. And now we do have a public inquiry. So I just want to point out that that excuse does not carry any weight that Pierre Poilievre has used. I have come up with conclusions that are very different from the government and very different from the special rapporteur after reading the information, while still protecting national security and still protecting the people and the ways and the techniques that we use. So I want to be clear. Yes, there are serious allegations that impact the Conservative Party, and we already also know of the impact of the allegations as it touches the Liberal Party of Canada, and that Justin Trudeau knew about these allegations and did not take steps. And so both of them have questions to answer.
Okay, so the outstanding issues that you said impacted other parties, what I'm hearing from you is the Conservative and the Liberal Party is what you're talking about. And then for my follow, just let me know if that's not accurate. And then for the follow, you said that you want the names of parliamentarians that the Prime Minister has said engaged or were victims of foreign interference to be released publicly, which is something that the Conservative leader is also calling for. Can you just clarify, is that what you're asking for, to waive the security clearance on this and just make these names public?
Well, I've taken a different approach. I think that there is a very serious national security concern, which I respect, both of people that are involved, that work for Canada, that do important work, that we don't want their names to be inadvertently disclosed or their identities to be disclosed. Also, our methodologies. I believe there must be a way for us to be able to release that information while protecting those items. And so I have said, yes, we should be able to release the names while respecting and protecting that information. Absent that, and in the meantime, Pierre Poilievre has to get security clearance and know what's going on that's directly impacting his party. I mean, it is ludicrous to me that someone who claims to want to be the Prime Minister of this country doesn't want to know of ongoing and serious threats that impact Canadians, that impact us. And I think it disqualifies him as a candidate for Prime Minister if he doesn't want to know about the serious threats that are impacting him and his party. I think it's clear to me that both of these leaders have at many times chosen to put their party before the country. The reluctance of Justin Trudeau to take adequate steps early on when it came to someone like Han Dong, the fact that he refused to act on information that was provided to him shows me that he also chose to put his party first. I believe when it comes to the security of our country, there is only one position that's appropriate. That is putting country first, that is putting the people of Canada first, and party second. Pierre Poilievre has clearly shown that he's not doing that.
Nous allons maintenant à Christian Noël avec Radio-Canada. C'est à vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada. Ma première question concerne les 4 ministres que va perdre Justin Trudeau d'ici bientôt et le remaniement ministériel qui va sûrement s'en suivre. Ma question pour vous est la suivante. Avec un gouvernement qui semble de plus en plus en déroute, combien de temps pouvez-vous les garder au pouvoir?
Donc, notre réponse, ce n'est pas une question de garder au pouvoir. Notre réponse, c'est on va regarder chaque motion, on va regarder chaque vote, et puis on va décider comment on va voter. Notre priorité à ce moment, c'est on veut que le gouvernement fasse le travail nécessaire pour réduire le coût de la vie. Faites les changements pour réduire les prix des nourritures, les prix des épiceries, le coût des logements. Et aussi avec le passage de la loi sur la science médicaments, on veut que le gouvernement négocie avec les autres provinces pour réaliser ce programme. Je veux que les gens aient accès aux médicaments pour le diabète gratuit, les appareils gratuits et aussi les contraceptifs gratuits. C'est ce que je veux réaliser à ce moment. Donc, ça, c'est ma priorité. On va évaluer chaque vote et décider comment on va voter.
Et si ces priorités se retrouvent dans un potentiel discours du trône, s'il y avait prorogation, est-ce que vous seriez prêt à garder le gouvernement en vie jusqu'en octobre?
Encore la décision de comment on va voter pour chaque vote, on va regarder chaque vote. Même si c'est un discours du trône, on va regarder les détails, on va regarder chaque vote et puis on va décider. Pour nous, ce qui nous motive, c'est quoi dans les intérêts des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Je sais que les conservateurs vont couper. Donc, leur approche, c'est de couper l'assurance médicaments, couper les soins dentaires, couper dans les financements pour les soins de santé en général, couper les pensions, couper dans les travailleurs de la frontalière. Leur approche, c'est de couper les choses dont les gens ont besoin. Ce n'est pas notre approche. Notre approche, c'est de faire ce qui est dans les intérêts des Canadiens, ce qui est dans les intérêts des gens, et on va continuer de faire ça.
Merci beaucoup. Maintenant, nous allons à Émilie Bergeron avec la presse canadienne. C'est à vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. Pour revenir à l'ingérence étrangère, vous avez dit qu'il n'y a rien, aucune information qui nécessitait des actions supplémentaires de votre part. Mais est-ce que vous avez eu des informations sur des candidats du NPD, des anciens parlementaires ou des députés actuels, des informations qui vous ont permis de faire des vérifications et que ça vous a permis de conclure que finalement, vous n'aviez pas d'action à passer? Est-ce que ça vous a permis de mener des vérifications à l'interne?
Oui, oui, bien sûr. Il n'y a aucune inquiétude soulevée par ce que j'ai lu pour mon parti. Et ça, c'est pourquoi il n'y a pas des actions que j'aurais dû prises. Parce qu'il n'y a aucune action nécessaire après ce que j'ai lu. Il n'y a aucune inquiétude soulevée. Mais il y a des inquiétudes pour les autres parlementaires qui restent. Et ça, c'est pourquoi je continue de dire je ne peux pas comprendre pourquoi un chef d'un parti politique au Canada ne veut pas comprendre les détails ou savoir les détails pour ce qui se passe, particulièrement après ce qu'on a entendu d'un gouvernement étranger qui, euh, qui effectivement gère des éléments criminels à perpétuer la violence par les armes à feu euh, euh, contre les Canadiens, contre les entreprises canadiennes. Ça, c'est incompréhensible pourquoi M. Poilievre ne veut pas savoir ce qui se passe avec toutes les allégations récentes et aussi avec les allégations soulevées par le rapport. Je ne comprends pas. Je pense que ce qu'il fait, c'est qu'il priorise son parti au lieu du pays. Et dans mon avis, dans les questions de sécurité nationale, dans les questions de protection de notre pays, dans les questions de protection des Canadiens, on doit mettre le pays en avant du parti.
Et il y a beaucoup de questions comme la commissaire, dans son rapport intérimaire, a parlé des règles internes des partis, les nominations de candidats, les investitures, qui sont des portes d'entrée pour l'ingérence étrangère. Euh, et ça vise tous les partis. Donc, vous, au NPD, est-ce que vous êtes prêt à faire des changements dans les règles à l'interne pour les nominations des candidats et pour les investitures et quel genre de changement pourrait être apporté selon vous?
Merci pour la question. Donc, comme j'ai dit, il n'y a pas, dans le cas de notre parti, des inquiétudes sur ces questions qui étaient soulevées par le rapport ou par l'information que j'ai reçue. Mais je suis toujours ouvert au changement, comment on peut mieux protéger notre démocratie, comment on peut mieux protéger notre parti. Je suis toujours ouvert aux suggestions et je suis en contact régulièrement avec la sécurité nationale, les gens qui travaillent là, pour me donner des conseils de comment on peut mieux gérer ces dossiers. Et je suis toujours ouvert au changement. Je pense que ça, c'est comment on doit agir comme une chef d'une partie. On doit avoir cette préoccupation. La priorité de protéger notre démocratie doit être là. Pour moi, c'est là. Ça, c'est pourquoi je continue les rencontres avec et les experts de notre pays qui sont dans ce domaine. Je continue, j'ai des contacts réguliers et encore, j'exige que tous les partis fédéraux, tous les chefs des partis fédéraux doivent aussi faire la même chose. Et ce n'est pas le cas avec Pierre Poilievre et c'est vraiment inquiétant.
We will now go to David Baxter with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hey there, Mr. Singh. I know you've been calling for Pierre Poilievre to get the top secret clearance. In his statement yesterday, he was saying that his chief of staff does receive classified briefings, and neither he nor anyone from intelligence agencies have raised these concerns directly with him. Just what do you make of that reasoning from the Conservative leader?
I think it sounds like a cop-out. Does that sound like a leader that's taking this seriously? It doesn't sound like someone who cares. You've got these serious allegations that a foreign government literally hired gangs in Canada to go out and shoot up people's homes and people's businesses. Canadians' lives are put at risk. Does that sound like the response of a leader who's taking it seriously, who actually is concerned about safety? Saying, oh, someone else in my team has looked at it, I don't know, something. That does not sound like someone who's taking this seriously. This is serious. It's a very serious matter. And it requires a leader who's prepared to get the security clearance, to know what's going on. Why would he want to turn a blind eye? Why would he want to make it clear to a foreign government that he's not taking this seriously? He's the only federal leader that doesn't want to know about allegations of foreign interference that directly impact his party from a government that is directly implicated in serious and heinous crimes against Canadians. And that is the response that he has given does not give a lot of confidence that he's taking this seriously or that he's showing responsibility. If I'm a leader, I want to look at the information myself. I don't want to outsource that to someone else. If it's something impacting my party and I'm the leader of my party, I want to make sure I want to know what's going on. I want to know exactly what's going on. I want to know the details of it. I want to see it personally because I'm the leader of the party. That does not sound like someone who's taking responsibility, that cares about our security in our country.
David, you just need to unmute to ask your follow-up.
Oh, apologies. Thanks, Nina. And yeah, just the Prime Minister also making reference to the situation in Don Valley North regarding issues involving the Liberal Party and foreign interference. In your view, being able to look at the NSICOP report, was that the lone instance of potential foreign interference highlighted with the Liberals, or did you see issues that raised your concern beyond the Don Valley North situation?
I think in the public discourse, there's additional matters that were raised, and there are additional matters that need to be addressed. And frankly, the Prime Minister has known about information and not taking sufficient action, but at least he tried to know, not taking sufficient action. And we got a Conservative leader who doesn't even want to know. I believe what an appropriate steps for a leader is to know exactly what's going on and take every step possible to protect our country.
We will now go to Palak with Parliament Today. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. You're saying that there was nothing requiring you to take action, but that there was outstanding information around the Conservatives. But the Prime Minister was clear that members of the Liberals, Conservative, and I believe he said other parties were also compromised. So can you just square those comments with what you're saying today? And is the implication that the Prime Minister was lying, or was he referencing other parties, be it the Bloc, the Green?
Yeah, I can be very clear about the NDP that the information I received required no additional steps for me regarding the subject matter, which is current MPs, former MPs, or candidates. There's no information that required me to take any action, and there's nothing that was raising any concerns about my party specifically when it comes to the question of knowingly or unwittingly working for a foreign government. That question of knowingly or unwittingly and the parliamentarians associated with that is something that impacts other parties, and it was raised in the public report or the public portion of the report that is available. That is outstanding, absolutely. The commissioner raising that the concern that there is attempts of foreign interference that impact all parties is valid. There's many attempts of foreign interference impacting all parties. We see that in many different ways. We see propaganda spread by foreign governments trying to attack members of parliament. There's many areas where the commissioner is absolutely right, where there is attempts of foreign interference. But when we're talking about the specific allegation in the report that talks about parliamentarians who are either knowingly or unknowingly or wittingly or unwittingly engaged in behavior and actions that undermine our country, that is of the utmost seriousness. And that's the area where I have no concerns for my party, but I have concerns for other parties. And that's where I'm saying that there needs to be additional steps taken.
And just as a follow-up, in relation to the CBSA announcement here, can you just specify what is your commitment? Is it to restore that 1,100, the same workers in the same positions? Because I did hear a figure from Mr. Weber around, I think he said 2,000 workers needed to even just counter attrition. So if maybe both of you want to weigh in on that. Sure.
My commitment is to first and foremost is to remedy that mistake or that decision that was made, that cut of 1,100 workers. We have to immediately restore those 1,100 workers and look at all possible means to do that. Rehiring workers, looking at ways to improve recruitment, looking at ways to keep workers on for longer. We need to find ways that respect the worker, working with the union to come up with a solution, but we need to make sure we immediately get back the cut of 1,100 workers. That has to happen immediately. And then we've also committed to increasing beyond that, because as Mr. Weber pointed out, that cut of course, it's important to quickly remedy that cut. That still wouldn't get us to where we need to go. We need additional workers beyond that. So our commitment is to start with fixing that decision of the cut of the Conservatives that the Liberals have maintained. Immediately fix that, and then continue to increase staffing levels. And I invite Mr. Weber to add any more details if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, the initial cuts happened under the Deficit Reduction Action Plan under Mr. Harper. I believe that's what the intention is to be replaced. When I say 2,000, really that's the number that we estimate is needed just to meet operational requirements at the CBSA. We are short far more than the original 1,100 that were cut. On top of the staffing, what we need to see as well is kind of walking away from that over-reliance on new technologies that are meant to replace officers, because they are simply not doing that. Technology's focus is never on security. It's always about facilitation. So if we want to stop things coming into the country that we don't want in the country, such as illegal firearms, we really need the people in place. So the announcement today is very positive.
Thanks.
Alors, nous avons une dernière question. We have one last question. Mélanie Marquis avec la presse, c'est à vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. La question
Bonjour,
a
madame.
été posée plusieurs fois mardi dernier, mais elle est demeurée sans réponse. Pouvez-vous dire si la GRC vous a avisé que vous faisiez partie des personnes, qui étaient en danger d'être visées ou d'être menacées par l'Inde?
Comme j'ai dit en avant avec cette même question, j'accepte le fait que la question a été posée quelques fois, mais ce n'est pas à propos de moi. Je veux continuer de garder l'attention sur le fait que les Canadiens étaient ciblés et le fait qu'il y a une allégation forte et sérieuse menée par la GRC qu'il y a une menace d'un gouvernement étranger, ça veut dire le gouvernement de l'Inde, qui gère des éléments criminels, des organismes criminels pour perpétuer la violence contre les Canadiens, les entreprises canadiennes. Ça, c'est le problème et je pense que ça, c'est quelque chose qui doit prendre toute notre attention pour régler. Et ça c'est pourquoi on demande quelques étapes immédiatement. On a demandé des sanctions sévères sur les diplomates spécifiques de l'Inde. On veut continuer d'avoir pression pour plus de transparence. On veut aussi arrêter à ce moment de geler le partage d'informations de sécurité entre le Canada et l'Inde. On doit geler cette information à ce moment à cause du fait que ces allégations soulèvent le fait qu'il y avait des diplomates et des travailleurs du gouvernement de l'Inde qui utilisent l'information des Canadiens pour menacer leur famille en Inde. Donc, et pour aussi perpétuer la violence contre ces gens ici au Canada. Donc, à ce moment, on doit geler ça aussi. Et finalement, j'ai dit qu'on doit bannir l'organisme RSS. C'est un groupe d'extrême droite, un groupe militant qui a des organismes à travers le pays. C'est un organisme qui vient de l'Inde et donc on doit bannir cet organisme immédiatement aussi.
Oui, je comprends tout ça, mais y a-t-il une raison? Vous dites, c'est pas à mon sujet, mais la question, elle porte sur vous directement. Est-ce qu'il y a une raison pour laquelle vous refusez de répondre à la question précisément?
Parce que je ne veux pas parler de moi. Dans un cas assez sérieux, il y a des allégations de violence contre plusieurs Canadiens, une menace sur la sécurité du Canada, une menace sur la sécurité des gens. Je ne veux pas parler de moi, je veux parler des gens, je veux parler de comment on peut protéger notre pays, je veux parler de la priorité de protéger notre pays. Je veux critiquer les autres chefs qui ne prennent pas au sérieux cette question. Donc, je ne veux pas que ça devienne une situation de moi. Je veux parler des gens et je veux parler de comment on peut protéger notre pays.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. This concludes our press conference. Ceci conclut notre conférence de presse.
Merci. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being so patient with all that. It was a little longer than we thought. A lot of questions, a lot of interest, but thank you so much.